Bonjour, Monsieur le Président international Tim Boyd, son épouse, Madame Lily Boyd. Bonjour à tous les dignitaires et à nos conférenciers. Et bonjour, chers délégués. Nous avons aujourd'hui le plaisir et l'honneur de vous offrir cette soirée. Bien sûr, nous sommes conscients qu'en si peu de temps, il y aura plusieurs sujets et plusieurs éminents personnages dont nous ne pourrons parler. Mais nous ferons de notre mieux pour brosser un tableau de notre beau pays. Nous vous parlerons ou nous vous avons parlé de ce pays d'un point de vue géographique, que ce soit sa vastitude, ses nombreux paysages, sa faune variée et l'immensité de ses lacs et rivières. Nous avons parlé et continuerons à parler des gens qui ont formé et forment notre pays, leurs accomplissements, dont certains rayonnent encore aujourd'hui à travers le monde. La richesse de la spiritualité des Premières Nations, qui mérite d'être mieux connue dans sa diversité d'est en ouest. La diversité des origines des Canadiens, qui se traduit par un vivre ensemble, pas toujours facile, mais combien enrichissant. Nous vous parlerons bien sûr du fait que la théosophie est plus que centenaire au Canada. Nous vous présenterons un aperçu de ce que les femmes et les hommes impliqués dans la théosophie ont compris et transmis autour d'eux. Comment l'influence des fondateurs, Blavatsky, Olcott, Judge, ont apporté au Canada l'espoir d'un monde meilleur. Nous vous présenterons aussi l'ordre de service théosophique, l'ordre de service théosophique canadienne, et nous soulignerons quelques-uns de ses accomplissements. Finalement, il est important de souligner qu'au Canada, comme partout à travers le monde, la société théosophique a eu des influences et a permis à d'autres mouvements, aussi avec de nobles buts, de naître ou de grandir et d'apporter leurs bienfaits, que ce soit l'Église catholique libérale, la franc-maçonnerie, l'Ordre de la Table ronde, l'Ordre des martinistes. Au Canada, tous ces mouvements sont nés ou se sont poursuivis grâce à la persévérance des théosophes qui, dans leur travail, ont voulu varier la manière d'apporter le même message. Je vous remercie à l'avance pour votre participation. J'espère que cette soirée vous permettra de mieux nous connaître et j'espère aussi que nous aurons beaucoup de plaisir. Merci. Maintenant, je vais vous présenter notre maître de cérémonie, Madame Gertrude Doyon.
Merci Robert. Thank you, Robert. I will start my talk, or my, let's say, animation in English because I first have to introduce Shawn Edenshaw and his family. As you can see, he has a great family, and I'm sure that it is wider than that. And I also will have to present the rest of our guests from eastern part of Canada that are, as with no surprise with many of you, are more French-speaking person as I am, as you can hear with my accent. So I just want to make you sure that the fact that we want to make the celebration of this 100 anniversary years, 100 years of, my English will come. It's a bit slow still a bit. But I just want to make sure that this 107th year anniversary that we can celebrate today of the participation of Canada in the Theosophical Society, we already have spoken about quite a lot for us, but for our, we had the word, a lot of words came out of that micro, and now I think that it's quite important for us now to pass this wooden stick or this eagle feather to the first indigenous people that were here before all the other people that came here afterwards. First the Viking, they came, and then the Basque from the Spain, the northern Spain, and then there was the French-speaking people from France, and then the British came, and then all the rest of the planet came here, and they discovered this country as, well, it's an interesting place where to stay. So we have a kind of, a lot of people from everywhere or nearly everywhere living now here, and we are always very welcoming to, I think that we are a welcoming country. And I hope that we will still that way, and we won't turn off our frontier like some other places that we won't name. So this is it for now, and this feather, eagle feather, my brother Grégoire will use it concretely. And before that, I want to present you Shawn Edenshaw, who is in this part of the country, was as a Haida, indigenous, I'm not sure, First Nation, let's see, kid, a kind of a children of this nation. And this Edenshaw, no, Shawn Edenshaw, your first name is Shawn, then this man will show you how the creativity is important in their own spirituality, how the spirituality takes place through objects. And I think that Edenshaw, Shawn, is still working hard, and not only hard, but well, making beautiful things out of glass, out of gold, out of silver, out of many objects. And he even had made a glass sculpture, sculpture, and that you will be able to see at the Capitolino Bridge for the ones that will be there a few days to come. And then this Shawn was, till he is very young, he worked on this as a carver, as an artist in any kind of medium. He will explain you more about it. And so I will invite Shawn, to come here and explain us how you have been telling to everyone what your culture is. Please come in.
Good afternoon. My name is Yaga Heeks Yalfgayai. I am Gitxsan and Haida. My mother was Janet Tate from the village of Kispiox, from the Fireweed House and the Killawell clan. My father was Jim Edenshaw from the Raven clan of Kuna, also known as Skadans. I'm honored to be here today and would like to acknowledge that we are on the territory of the Coast Salish and would like to give my hands of thanks I'd like to thank our host for giving us the opportunity to live, learn, and share in this land. Hau'a, hau'a, hau'a. I'm here to chat with you a little bit about the Pacific Northwest coast. The area I'm talking about ranges from about northern Washington state up to Alaska. The Pacific Northwest coast as a whole was a very unique grouping of similar cultures that vary drastically in their traditions. They had amongst them stories many shared not only amongst the villages within their respective nations, but between the nations themselves. Some based on fantastical stories of magic, transformation, and creation and discovery. Some a retelling of amazing encounters, wars, trading, and long voyages. I'm quite grateful that I grew up here in Vancouver. I always wished that I lived back home on Haida, Gui, but I was always grateful that I was down here. I was raised surrounded by some of the most powerful and amazing artists the world has ever seen, whether it was Robert Davidson, Bill Reed, Jim Hart, Freddie Davis, and all these really, really powerful, amazing carvers. Growing up, I was borderline convinced that if you were a First Nations man in Canada and you were working, you were most likely a famous artist. That was just the environment that I was surrounded in. I was quite grateful that I grew up during a time of cultural resurgence here in Vancouver. Bill Reed was creating some of the most fantastic, most thought-provoking, monumental pieces of art the world has ever seen, whether it was his Raven and First Men sculpture, the killer whale outside of Stanley Park, or the Spirit of Haida Gui, which was considered the world's masterpiece. I was quite fortunate that I got to grow up watching him create this piece down on Granville Island, watching him come together with not only Haida artists, but Coast Salish artists and artists from all up and down the coast. There are many nations that work together on the Spirit of Haida Gui. To me, that piece, the Spirit of Haida Gui, is an amalgamation, a culmination of all the work that we put together here on the West Coast. Before colonization took over and made things really complicated for us, whether most people knew it or not everything was so hunky-dory and peaceful here on the West Coast. The Haidas and the Kwakwaka'wakw, very particular, were known as the Vikings of the Northwest Coast. The two nations were very well known for their warring and for their raiding parties. But it's because of stuff like that, a lot of the villages grew tired of all of this fighting. There's one particular document that has been ratified in the last 5 or 6 years between the Haida and the Hiltsuk. It's a Haida-Hiltsuk Peace Treaty Accord. It was ratified by the Haida and the Hiltsuk based on the fact that the province was doing what they could to try divide and conquer. Basically saying that if we wanted to go to court and assert our rights and title, we had to negotiate with the Hiltsuk and between the Hiltsuk and the Haida. There's a small parcel of land, about 2 square kilometers of ocean right in the middle, that basically was in contention. It was on our maps, the Haida maps, as well as the Hiltsuk maps of place of significance. Because the province basically said, if you guys do not settle this parcel of territory, you guys cannot come to court with us. So in typical Haida fashion, we decided to throw a great big giant potlatch in a party. We invited the Hiltsuk, and we began talks and negotiations about this peace treaty. We basically put a moratorium on this 2 square kilometer parcel of land, and since then, the province was forced to come to court with us, where the Haida asserted their rights and title and challenged the province and the federal government to say, why do you think you deserve our island? Why do you think you have rights to our island? And that court case went on and on and on. It eventually came to the Supreme Court, and they decided that the Haidas were, in fact, the owners, and we held 100% of the rights and title to not only the land but the sea, from sea floor to mountaintop. We're one of the only First Nations in Canada who've gotten that designation. It's one that we worked for really, really hard. The way we see it, it wasn't just for us that we were doing it for the rest of the West Coast as well. We work with a number of different organizations like Coastal First Nations Group to lend a hand politically as well as by law. It's a lot easier for a lot of the First Nations along the coast to go to court and challenge tree farming licenses or any other sort of court cases if the Haida intervene. Whether it was a Chilcotin or the Niska or any other groups that face scrutiny from the federal government, the Haidas have always done our best to step up and help out wherever we can, because we understand that we are in a very, very unique position, and we do what we can to try solidify that partnership between the Haida people and the rest of the West Coast. A lot of our lessons that we've learned through our stories, whether they were moral lessons, lessons about life, balance with nature, stories about the wars, and consequences to your actions, whatever they may have been. In most of these stories, our hero is Raven, also known as Nung Kilsloss. That was a name that we bestowed upon our supernatural Raven. He's considered like a creator, a very mischievous one that gets himself into and out of trouble by talking at great length. It is believed that he had two different tones of speaking. One that was harsh and commanding, the other one was one that he liked to use most, was one that was a little bit more soft, melodic, and borderline hypnotic. He was considered to be the most charismatic individual, although a very mischievous one. Our stories speak of the first clans and where they came from. At first glance, a lot of the crests on the Haida totem poles and monuments appear to represent animals. Upon investigation, it is obvious to those that have studied the art that the carved figures also represent natural phenomena such as cumulus and cirrus clouds or rainbows, as well as celestial bodies like the moon and the stars. At other times, items of Haida material culture are portrayed, such as war helmets, ermine skin headdresses, or hats like I'm wearing today. Whether of animal or other origin, all of these crests can be transformed into abstract images, thoughts, and ideas. Even something as improbable as a floating tree stump in the ocean can be rendered as an animal head with a tall stack of cylinders projecting above it, which represents the supernatural snag, a supernatural creature that punches holes into canoes. Ideally, each clan should have had crests that were unique to them and which would have separated each other clearly from one clan to the other. And to some extent, this was true. But some transfer of crests occurred between clans, and on the north and south coast, examples included are that of the Dogfish crest, being used by an Eagle clan in Skidegate, but by a Raven clan amongst the Kaigani Haida of Alaska. The skate also being used by Eagle and Raven clans in different parts of the islands. Attempts to explain this is essentially the result of the fact that crests used by Haida clans did not always coincide with the crests used by matched lineages or clans along the coast like the Tlingit or Tsimshian, where we share a lot of our crests. Since crests were exchanged between these nations, crests can be adopted by the opposite clan when being exchanged between the nations. A lot of these clans can basically, a lot of the clan crests, a lot of times symbolize a matrimony, a coming together of two nations, or coming together of different clans and villages back home. Our clans demonstrated the interconnected relationships between the nations and their respective environments. For the Raven clan, they had quite a few different clan crests or subcrests that were available to them that signified where they came from. They had the Kilauea, which had been used since the time of Foam Woman, which is basically time immemorial. The crest is so old, we don't know how long we've had it. Grizzly Bear, which was procured from the Tsimshian. The Thunderbird or Blue Hawk, Rainbow, Cumulus Clouds, Flicker, Supernatural Snag, Black Bear, Mountain Goat, and Moon. The Eagle clan also had quite a few clan crests that they were also able to use. They had the frog, the cormorant, the beaver, the dogfish was brought over from the Tsimshian in the form of a tattoo. Basically, a young lady had married into a Haida nation, and when she got married, she already had the tattoo on her back. And because of that, that clan now has that particular design that they can use. There's also sculpin, halibut, five-fin killer whale, wasco, known as sea wolf, is a supernatural creature, and hummingbird. One of my favorite tales is that of Bear Mother. It tells the story of a young princess who was out picking berries. Back in time, it was not uncommon for not only the highborn, but the slaves to be picking berries side by side. We had a hierarchy on Haida. It was important for all to contribute to the harvest before winter. This young lady was incredibly bored while she was picking. She wasn't paying attention. She was daydreaming about a life that was about to happen. She had overheard her parents planning an arranged marriage for her. Yes, we had arranged marriages up in Haida. She was daydreaming of marrying a man who did not have another wife. This was also very common. She was daydreaming of the potlatch that would be thrown in her honor for her union when she had stepped in bearship. She started cursing the bear for whom provided the scat that she started cursing the bear's immediate family and relatives and all their ancestors. Unfortunately for her, there was a pair of bears just around the corner from where she was picking. Back in myth time, it was believed that the animals and humans understood each other. So it wasn't unusual that this pair of bears overheard what she had said, and they weren't too thrilled what they had heard. Upon hearing this, they kidnapped her and brought her back to their village, locked her in a small, tiny cabin-like structure with no windows, no smoke hole, just a dirt floor. The young princess looked up with nowhere to go. She heard a small, tiny squeak from the corner. From the corner walked up a tiny little creature who introduced herself as Kugan Jad, also known as Mouse Woman. They hatched up a plan to get her out. The plan in itself was silly and very absurd. Kugan Jad asked if she was indeed a chief's daughter, and she said yes. Then you must own a copper bracelet. She agreed, I do. Kugan Jad had mentioned that the copper was sacred not only amongst your people, but amongst the bear. Mouse Woman convinced her to break the bracelet apart. When she would go to the washroom, she would bury her poo and replace it with copper. When she did this task, the bears were quite taken aback that this young lady, this princess, was all of a sudden producing copper from her food. When she had done this a second time, they kind of figured something was up. When she did this twice, this task the second time, the bears were absolutely convinced that she was a powerful being. Once convinced, the bears allowed her to live amongst them. Living amongst them, she became a valued member of the community. She eventually fell in love with one of the bear men. They eventually got married and had twin cubs. And eventually, after a very long time, they were allowed to leave the bear community and go back to the Haida one, bringing honor back to her original human clan and bestowing upon them the right to wear this clan crest. To me, this story is a reminder to always have respect and to pay attention to what's going on around you and your environment. You never quite know what's exactly around the corner, waiting, watching, listening. So it always behooves you to act kindly and to speak kindly. Your words carry a lot of weight and they carry consequences. Even if you think you're alone and you're cussing to the wind, you never know, there might be a couple of bears around the corner listening in on your story. Another one of my favorites is Raven Stealing the Light. In the beginning, there was no light, only darkness. And with this, Raven was bored and grew tired of bumping into things, crashing into things as he flew. He wanted to remedy this. He eventually heard of an old man who lived by the river. He lived in a giant home with his granddaughter. He flew up to the smoke hole, and there he waited and listened. He learned that the old man did indeed have a box, a magical box to be certain. That box contained an infinite amount of boxes, inside boxes, and the very smallest one contained the light. Raven decided he wanted this more than anything. He learned that the granddaughter would quite regularly walk down to the creek to fetch fresh water, and before she left the creek, she would always take a drink straight from the creek itself using her ladle. Once Raven learned of this, he decided he was going to transform himself into a spruce needle and float down the creek to be swallowed by the granddaughter to impregnate her, because that's definitely how pregnancy works. Once Raven was able to accomplish his goal, he was able to get the old man to do whatever he wanted because the old man spoiled Raven as a child. Raven would ask the most mundane things just to see if the old man would get it for him or give in. Old man always would. Raven would use this to ask for boxes. Old man would usually not give in when it came to those very particular boxes, but with time, the old man would give in and give Raven a box from the infinite boxes, but only ever the largest one. Raven would act like this was enough to satisfy him, but eventually the box, it would only entertain him for so long before he would grow bored and want another one. After many times of pestering the old man, it got to the last box. This box was clearly different from all the others and was decorated vastly differently. Once Raven saw this box, he immediately transformed back into his old self, which was a giant white raven, because in the beginning he was white. He flew at the old man, scaring him, causing him to drop the box. When the old man dropped the box of light, the light exploded out of the box, blinding everyone in an instant. It was at that moment Raven picked up the light and flew straight up the smoke hole. In the process of doing so, the combination of the heat from the light and the soot from the smoke hole, Raven from then on turned jet black. As Raven flew, his cousin Eagle saw this and decided to give chase. In the chase, Raven had dropped the light, breaking it into two large pieces, the smallest bouncing off the ground and sticking into the sky, becoming the moon. The smallest pieces lay shattered upon the ground, were eventually cleaned up and put into the sky by Eagle Woman. The largest piece was thrown off into the distance because Eagle was still chasing Raven at this point, and he figured, if I can't have this light, no one's going to have the light. So he threw it as hard off into the distance as he could. And that's what gives us our sunrise and sunset today. It's a lot of stories like these that really, really help shape a lot of our modern philosophies when it comes to living back home on Haida. A lot of our cultural lessons and just lessons in general are learned through a lot of these songs and stories. A lot of times, a lot of these stories actually are a small part of a much larger event at potlatches. Usually when telling these stories, they're usually interrupted by song, by dance, with masks. It was our way of passing down the knowledge from one generation to the next, because we didn't have a written language. Our written language was on the totem poles. It was in the pieces that we carved. All of our history can be told through a lot of the artwork and designs. Even the tattoos, like the one I have here, traditional hand poke, they all point to our cultural history and our identity as a people. It's incredibly humbling to know that I am just one part of many, many carvers, singers, dancers carrying on the cultural tradition of our people, especially in a time that is so intense right now around the world. We pray all the time for a little bit of peace for all those, a little bit of humanity, for some balance in the world. We hope that by sharing some of our culture and some of our stories that we can help achieve some sort of balance. We've definitely come a long way in the last 30, 40 years. Just in the time from me being a child to now, the changes have been drastic and huge in a positive way. There was a lot of hardship to get here, and there's going to be a lot of hardship coming, but we will make progress. It's incredibly humbling to be able to voice that and to share that. The culture has played a huge role in my life, whether it was getting the opportunity to share the songs and the dances with people from around the world, whether it was going down to Panama or going over to England, an opportunity to share the culture with anyone who's willing to listen is always a humbling experience. Even you guys asking me to be here today was incredibly humbling for me. I'm also incredibly stressed out being up here and chatting with you guys. I generally don't talk outside of the community too often. Majority of the time when I'm speaking, it's for our own people. It's at our potlatches, it's at our gatherings, and usually I'm not the one speaking. I'm just the guy in the background singing and dancing. But it's slowly starting to dawn on me that I'm now one of the adults in the room. Realizing I'm having to grow up and to share this experience with the world. Thank you. Yeah, and I really do want to thank all of you guys for allowing me to be here to chat with you guys. I hope I was able to let you guys know a little bit about what's going on the West Coast as far as the Haida people and as far as our clans go. Getting into our philosophies it's a deep one. It's incredibly complicated to chat about what we believe in, but essentially what it boils down to is balance between us and the natural world. Being kind as often as you can. For us, wealth was always displayed by sharing, whether it was at the potlatches and we're giving away all our gifts, or sharing the stories, sharing the art, sharing the culture. That was the most priceless thing that we could give, was to share. It's one of our biggest philosophies. It was something that was we practiced to our own detriment. Was we're always incredibly welcoming and incredibly sharing to all those who are willing. And for that, I do say thank you for allowing me to be here today. Yeah, thank you.
So I will thank Shawn very, very much to have opened your heart and your mind also through the stories that you told us, because it was a kind of a light, it's true raven for all of us. Because I think that we all have this type of stories that are linking us to higher and lighter events. It is just one aspect of what your culture must bring. Thank you very much. Really, it inspires us and it relates us all together. Merci beaucoup, Shawn. Et maintenant, si je ne sais pas si la technologie va se permettre de traduire maintenant du français à l'anglais, sans problème, parfait. Je voulais simplement souligner que Amari Uskwe Atmari est la devise du Canada, d'une mer à l'autre. Donc on part maintenant du Pacifique, on s'en va dans l'Atlantique, avec l'apport de 2 personnes indigènes ou autochtones ou Premières Nations, vous choisissez, qui vont venir nous présenter un autre aspect. On va voir les recoupements, mais en la personne de Grégoire Canapé et de Carole Flamand, Wolf, qui vont tous deux venir ensemble nous présenter. Grégoire est de nation Innu, étant donné que notre amie Carole est plutôt de la Atikamekw, de la région de Manawan. Ceux qui connaissent le Québec, c'est autour du lac Saint-Jean. C'est bien ça. Donc, ces 2 personnes-là ont des cultures, des formations très différentes. En la personne de Grégoire, on a un aîné qui est un porteur d'objets sacrés, entre autres le tambour, entre autres parce qu'il est aussi porteur de la pipe, il est porteur de différents objets sacrés qu'il utilise beaucoup dans des rituels de guérison. Quant à Carole, elle, de son côté, étant Atikamekw, elle fait le pont entre différentes cultures amérindiennes ou autochtones ou indigènes ou Premières Nations. Et donc, elle se met aussi à l'école des aînés parce que la culture autochtone est très fortement axée sur la place importante accordée aux aînés. Je crois que ça, c'est à travers le Canada que ça se passe, cette conception-là. Donc, je vais demander à Grégoire et Carole de venir me rejoindre ici, s'il vous plaît. On va donc pouvoir les entendre jusqu'à vers 6 heures avant de souper. Et puis, attendez un peu que je revienne. Je vais revenir avant qu'on aille souper, je vais revenir vous parler de ce qui nous attend là.
Bon, merci beaucoup Gertrude. Normalement, je n'aurais pas dû prendre la parole, mais il semble que ce n'est pas toujours évident de passer du français à l'anglais. Donc, pour cette raison, je vais demander à M. Jacques Manic de venir nous rejoindre. Et je viens de parler avec Grégoire et Carole. Et nous allons faire chacun la traduction. Alors, for the technical support, please, when Carole is going to sing, that must not be filmed or recorded. Thank you very much. You see, I'm going to have a lot of help to do the translation. So, Carole, Grégoire, you tell me when you need us.
Okay. Koi intuitie, bevam skremeien nach nagradon. Mochten do det, met den dan betetet. Besamit nozi. Num stihlan de pinaste siwat. Udakwitka, ayustakwitka stadin sina. Oui, t'as bien des petits chapitres, oui, c'est un coup de tête, alors je me suis présenté.